Well, I didn't share the same enthusiasm about Midnight for Miracle movies you did. It's pretty good. There's absolutely zero spiritual value to it. We still what?
A lot of metaphors and Eurasian.
But it's actually very entertaining, so, and relatively family friendly. Except the Hulk's kind of scary. So we're church workers. All right. Last week we talked about. We ended it with, hopefully you guys thought more for at least 5-6 minutes after church, right? About what your testimony was. Anybody? No? Good. All right. As long as we're consistent, that's all I ask. The last week we talked about how Joshua was told by God to be strong and courageous 3 times in the first half. So this week we're going to be talking about the second half of the first chapter of Joshua, and this is going to be kind of a different kind of vibe. So hopefully you bear with me. Hopefully you're kind of in this one with me. It's a little bit more of an active discussion as far as should elicit some kind of a necessary response as we go along. Joshua has ascended now from being the assistant to Moses, where Moses caught the brunt of all of the garbage. We've been talking about the garbage for 3 months, right? Hopefully all of you have 1 or 2 things in your head that you remember about the difficulties that Moses went through. And Joshua has sort of been able to watch that and sort of grow up in that and seeing how Moses went through this and went through that trial. And now Joshua has ascended to this leadership role where he's taking on a very imposing set of circumstances. He has hundreds of thousands of people that are relying on him. He has a history that's not real positive, a history where God has promised and followed through and delivered, to where they've sinned and turned their back on God, so God has been forced to realign their priorities once or twice. And so Joshua is now taking on this role, and it's a big role. This is a huge, huge task in front of Joshua. And now he's faced with, God tells him, the first thing God says is, okay, Moses is gone, you're in charge, now be strong and courageous, keep the word at the center of everything, and you're going to now go take the land. You're going to go take possession of that which I promised to your fathers, which I promised to Moses. And so he doesn't get to start with something little, right? He doesn't get to start with a little bitty thing and say, okay, so now that you're in charge, Joshua, we're going to implement the first, whatever rule. No, his first task is now you're going to lead this group of people that Moses could not lead adequately. Moses couldn't keep them in line. Moses couldn't keep them going in the same direction all the time. But now I'm going to ask you to go do that which I told Moses to do. And it's a real test now whether or not they believe that Joshua is ordained by God. Because he's going to ask them to do something huge. And he's going to ask them to believe in the fact that he is ordained by God. And they have to, because what he's going to ask them to do is on such a large magnitude that that's the only reason that they would do it. And so he addresses the 2 sides of the Israelite people. On one side you have the West Bank, so to speak, and on the other side you have the East Bank. And on the East Bank you have 2.5 tribes, on the West Bank you have everybody else. And so he breaks down this discussion with them into 2 parts. And so when he addresses the people on the west side, and he says, he commands the officers of the people saying, pass through the camp, and command the people saying, prepare provisions for yourself, for within 3 days you will cross over this Jordan, and you will go in to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess. Okay, so last week we talked about be strong and courageous, keep the word at the center. This week, as we transition right into verse 10, he says, now, basically he's saying, okay, pack a lunch, boys, because we got a battle to tend to. Right? We got a battle to go get. That's what he's saying. Pack a lunch. Right? Go get your provisions, go get what you need, go take care of what you need to take care of, because we have a battle that we have to get to, and the time of our wandering and our homelessness are over. Okay, but in order to do that, we have to go take it. I heard somebody on the radio this week talking about, American history, and made a comment about how, we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I kept being caught up in that whole word pursuit. We don't have the right to be happy. We have the right to pursue happiness. There's a difference. By being born in this country, you aren't given the right to be happy. You're given the right to pursue it. Pursuit takes work. Pursuit takes effort. Pursuit takes energy. Right? And so here he's saying, listen, now we're going to go and we're going to take possession of the land. All these things that we've been dealing with are now behind us, and we're going to move forward. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about one of the phrases that he says. So then he turns to the other group, and he says, "Unto the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half of the tribe of Manasseh, Joshua spoke, saying, Remember the word which Moses the servant of the Lord commanded you, saying, The Lord your God is giving you rest, and is giving you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your livestock shall remain in the land which Moses gave you on this side of the Jordan." Okay? So everybody got that? So now he's talking to the people on the east bank. Now this group of people is 2.5 tribes, and he's giving them a reminder of what has taken place. And it says that God had made you a promise through Moses. God made you a promise through Moses. He said, listen, you will get rest when you get the land. Not before, not because of, but when you take possession of the land which God promised. When you go in and do the work, you will then get rest. He says, pack a lunch, it's time to fight. He doesn't say, everybody grab some rest. He says, go get ready, because now's the time has come to fight. So he promised that. Then he says, your women and children will safely occupy the land right away. In other words, they're going to rest while you go fight. Right? You're fighting in front of them. You're protecting that group because of your efforts, because of what you're willing to do. And not only will you fight, but you will remain in front of your brothers until the battle is over with. Including those brothers who stay behind for whatever reason. Some men had to stay behind, right? Things had to be taken care of. Not every man is called to fight, which you'll see in just a minute. But the idea is that he's saying, listen, now while these guys stay behind, while the women stay behind, and while the children stay behind, you will go out in front of everybody else and fight. And you will stay until the fight's over. And you're fighting for your brothers. And then he says, but you shall pass before your brethren armed. In other words, you will be walking out in front of everybody armed. All your mighty men of valor, and help them until the Lord has given your brethren rest as he gave you, and as they have also taken possession of the land which the Lord your God is giving them. Then you shall return to the land of your possession and enjoy it, which Moses the Lord's servant gave you on this side of the Jordan toward the sunrise. Okay? So now we have an explanation of what the fight's going to look like. And he says, your mighty men will pass in front of you. Your mighty men will step out in faith. And they will be the ones fighting in front of the women and the children and everything else who's staying behind. You have to go and advance into the land to take what God has put before you. And so they are rising to the occasion. And you're not just going to fight till your fight is finished. You're going to fight until your brother's fight is finished. He says, listen, they have the same promise that God gave you, which is when the fight is over, they will get rest. And so you will stay a part of the fight until all of you have rest. In other words, you might win your little battle over here, but just because you won your battle doesn't mean you get to go home now. You will stay in the fight as mighty men of valor in front of each other. In other words, you're fighting the fight, right? I'm going to stay in front of you, you're going to stay in front of me, I'm going to stay in front of you, you're going to stay in front of me. There's almost a battle to stay in the fight. You will stay in the fight. Your rest will come when the battle's over, but the battle isn't over until their battle is over too. In other words, there's no idea, well, won my fight. I was able to take down my adversary here, so I'm done. Fantastic. I'm going to go home and take a nap. That's not what Joshua says. Joshua says their rest is promised with their fight as your rest is promised with yours, and your rest cannot come until their rest comes. What that means is all for one, all for all. Right? That's what it means. It means that we are all a part of this fight when it's over. And when the battle is over, you will return home to enjoy the promises of land reward. So when does the reward come? When the fight is over. Now, Joshua doesn't say, luckily the fight is only 2.5 days. He doesn't. He leaves it open-ended, right? When the battle is over, you get to go home. But until then, you'll be fighting. Does that make sense? So until the battle is completed. And only those committed even unto death will have the reward that they seek. The reality is you will fight. If you are not committed enough to go die for this cause, you will not get your reward. Because by virtue of grabbing a sword and running to the front of the battle lines, by grabbing a weapon and running in front to fight for your brother, you are accepting the fact that death may be in your future right away. Men fall in battle. Men fall quickly. Some live unexplainably a long time through many fights. But the reality is that unless you are committed, even to the point of death, you will not get the reward you seek. So what Joshua is saying is, unless you stay till the end of the fight, you don't get the reward. So it doesn't mean you get to go fight like a wild animal for one day and then get your reward. It means that we fight every day until the battle is done. And some battles can take years and years and years and years. But until we understand that the resolve required of us as Israelites is to stick through the length of the battle, the reward will not be ours to have. So if you fight hard for 2 weeks, you don't get the land. You fight until the battle is over with. And then they answered Joshua. This is the whole group of people. They answered Joshua saying, all that you have commanded us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we heeded Moses in all things, so we will heed you. Interesting verse there, right? They haven't done a real good job of that, but, right? Yeah, we all got that friend. I'll totally be there. Right? Sorry. But that's the point. It's an interesting phrase, isn't it? As we totally followed Moses wholeheartedly, we will follow you. I'm sure Joshua had to go. How about not as you followed Moses? You will follow me. We will heed you. Only the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your command and does not heed your words, and all that you command him shall be put to death. Only be strong and of good courage. So now this is the response. All the people say, wherever you ask us to go, we'll go. Wherever. We'll go. Right? Because this is what Joshua is asking for here. He's telling them that commitment is the only thing that's going to get you land. So what is Joshua's actually in this situation holding all of the cards, right? Because he's saying, without that, without your commitment, guess what? You get bupkis. You get nothing. Zero. You can go back to Egypt and pots of meat for all I care. But the reward is in front of you. And unless you are committed to the end of the battle, you will not get the reward. So they say, well, wherever you ask us to go, we will go. Whatever you ask us to do, we'll do. These are big words, aren't they? Whatever you ask us to do. And we will pray for you, and we will support you, and you have no need to worry, Joshua. Because that's what it means when it says, may the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. We will pray that God is with you in the fight. We will pray that God is your backbone through the whole thing. So now it's, we'll go wherever you want, we'll do whatever you want, we'll pray for you and support you in whatever you want to do. These are huge words. Not words to be taken lightly in any sense. And because you know we will do the fighting, and we are committed, you can be strong and courageous. That's what it means at the end when they say, only be strong and of good courage, Joshua. Because you don't have to be afraid, because we're right behind you. That's a big thing to say to somebody, isn't it? It's a big thing to say. You don't have any reason to worry, because we will fight this fight until the end. We will stand in this battle until the end. We will see victory together. We will not abandon you. We will not do as we did to Moses. We will not treat you as we treated Moses. We will follow you wholeheartedly into the fight, and we will see the fight finished. And because of our character, because of our strength behind you, you have no reason to worry. And because of the fact that you know we are fighting, you can have strength and good courage. Feed off of us, Joshua. Right? Let us show you our commitment, and you will be lifted up. Is what they're saying. These are huge words that they're giving to Joshua. Because of our support, you have no need to worry or ever be afraid. Because we all stand united for the cause. And we will see the fight finished. We will fight for each other. We will die for each other. We will stand strongly beside each other. We will do whatever it takes because we know that the reward that comes to all of us only comes if we're all committed. The reward that comes to me as an individual is dependent upon the man I'm fighting next to. Because the reward comes to all of us if we're committed. And it takes that level of commitment to be able to say those kinds of things. And so when we take a look at the overview of the cost, Joshua inherited the 10-year situation from past Moses, we talked about. God reminded him that he would support him, that he must remain strong and courageous and true to the word. Joshua as the leader, does he say that Joshua, it is your job to go pick up the sword and fight everybody else? What does he tell Joshua to do? Be strong and courageous and center everything upon the word. But the battle rested on the willingness of the tribes to commit to victory, and a victory that would cost some of them their lives. Some will die. Some will die. But that's what this battle rested upon. Joshua was not going to be able, and Caleb was not going to be able, the two of them, to go in and take care of everything on their own. The battle rested upon the willingness of the tribes to step up to the plate and say, we will fight for the cause. We will do what we need to do for the cause. Our commitment will never be questioned. And like I said, Joshua wasn't called to fight the battle, but to lead committed and willing soldiers to fight until the battle was over. See, Joshua doesn't give them a choice, right? He says, this is what we're going to do. If you want your reward, you have to prove to God that you're committed through the fight. Because if you're not, there will be no reward coming. And so, like I said, the battle couldn't be won without the commitment of the tribes. They had to be willing to be on the front lines, battling for the cause until completion of the fight. It had to be something they accepted before they ever said, Joshua, we're with you. They would stay in the fight until everyone was in a place to find and enjoy their rest. Do you know that the rest of the man or the woman next to you can depend upon your willingness to stay in the fight? Well, that's what's taking place here. Is it the soldier next to the soldier next to the soldier next to the soldier on the battlefield depended upon the rest that was their reward upon the person next to them? The faster we all fight together, the faster we all find our rest. The stronger we all fight together, the sooner we all find our rest. The sooner we find the promised land. The more we rely on smaller individuals and less people, the longer the fight will go on. But that many around us depend on us as soldiers to do the job. Being willing to fight alongside of each other, knowing that each other's rest depends on each other. That is what the definition of an army is. The awareness of the man and the woman next to you. There is no rest unless you fight together. Your rest will come sooner if everyone dedicates themselves to the cause. And they took an oath to support Joshua. And they consecrated the oath with the vow to put to death all who refused to follow through on their commitment. One of the things that's interesting, a lot of times we look at that kind of thing and think, man, that's pretty heavy. We just put them in the brick for a week. But the reality is if you are not committed to see the cause through, haven't you already given yourself a death sentence anyway? All they're doing is expediting the process. Because that's what it is. If we are unwilling to see the fight all the way through, children of Israel, children of California, if you are unwilling to see the fight all the way through and be wholeheartedly committed to it, there is no reward, thus a death sentence in you. But that's what they're doing. Because they're looking at it from a perspective of, we are in this together, nobody gets to do their own thing. And when I was reading this, one of the things that's interesting is I've always found that there's a very interesting balance between sort of my individual relationship with Jesus and the corporate vision of what Jesus asked all of us to do. And how the reality is this is a whole lot easier when we don't consider this an isolated incident. That we are all children of God, right? That we are all followers of Christ. Therefore, it is incumbent upon all of us to provide rest for each other. It is a command that we work together. It is not a command that we isolate ourselves from each other. And like this army, we are then pressed into action for the person sitting next to us right now. We are pressed into action for the people sitting in any congregation, any church, any Christian globally right now. We are pressed into action for people we don't know. A few 100,000 people, let's say 25,000 soldiers, think they knew everybody? You think every time they raised a sword they knew exactly who the guy was next to them? Probably not. But they were united by a cause. And they knew that my rest only comes if he finds his rest. My reward comes when he finds his reward. Created a unity. Because everybody was united for the same cause, the same reward, the same end result. But if each man went to fight in an isolated situation, only for himself or by himself, in the end there would be no reward, only death. And so we have to be very careful when we think of ourselves as isolated in this instance. And so, looking at kind of how that transitions forward is, there was no room for people to be on the fence in this command, right? There was no room for people to be wishy-washy. Why? Because riding the fence means pain in the butt. That's right. But. Yes, I actually changed it. From Heine. To go out in this situation, to have tribes of the Gadites say, we will fight, we will die, we will do whatever, and then to have half tribe of Manasseh say, well, we'll think about it while we're out there, it means everybody loses. It means people you don't know lose. There were women and children and others left behind, older men probably, younger men, left behind whose rest depended upon the willingness of the soldiers to fight the battle. Riding the fence, being passive because of indecision, had no place in the fight that required absolute commitment. Soldiers like that wouldn't have lasted long because they served no purpose in the fight. All they would do is serve to annoy all of the soldiers around them. But rather, those united for the cause understood that the lives of so many other people depended upon their willingness to fight. The reality is, it's a lot of fun to put the armor on, a lot of fun to pick up the sword and look cool. And maybe have that little parade when you get to go in front of everybody and go, there go our soldiers, and everybody's, yay! But then guess what? The swords start flying soon. Spears start flying soon, and it turns into a bloody, horrible mess. That's when it gets exciting. And if you're on the fence back here, guess what? There's no way you're shaming the fight up there. And that Joshua knew that. But see, what's interesting is so did the leaders of the tribes. They knew it too, because they said, we will put to death anybody who doesn't want to do this. Who says yes and then walks away. We will only serve with those who are committed to the cause. And the reality is that the lives of so many other people depended upon the unity of the soldiers. The women didn't get to have any say-so in the fight. They were back taking care of their families. No matter how unified they are for the cause, they are not helping up there. Right? It was those who were on the front lines that mattered. It was those who were fighting the fight, had to be unified and strong together. And Joshua knew that. And if we're not committed to the point of death, we have no promise of reward. There's no such thing as a fence-riding Christian. If you're on the fence, you're not a Christian. Right? It's the truth. There's no wait-and-see attitude in the fight. We'll see how it plays out. I might not win. I don't know. I'm a reservist. No. There is no reward without commitment. And we're all called to fight until we enter into rest together. There are people who are dying every day and not entering into rest. Because those who should be fighting, protecting their right to rest, are not doing it. And when the church doesn't feel motivated by that reality, it would be like the children of Israel, those mighty men not being motivated by that reality. Thus, who suffers? Their families, people around them, their friends, because they weren't driven to a unified arm to fight the fight until it's over. And that doesn't mean we don't have days of rest here and there. I'm not talking about keeping the Sabbath holy. I'm talking about the understanding that, guess what? You don't get to stop fighting. Any of you. We don't. The minute we say yes to Jesus, we enlist. With that cause. Only those who stay committed from the start of the fight to the end of the fight get their reward. Now, we all in our fights at different age, right? Some of you didn't get, some of you changed your life till you were 60. Over. Those of you guys who enlisted when you were 12, no longer fight. But the reality is, the minute you say yes to Jesus, and my guess is that 90% of you in this room would raise your hand if you said yes to Jesus. Guess what? You're enlisted. Guess what? You should be fighting for the one next to you, the one behind you, the one in front of you. In a unified cause for all of those who need you to fight for them too. All the unnamed, faceless, masses, you have to fight for them too. Because who are the children of Israel fighting for? Themselves? Yes. How about their future generations? Yes. How about their present generations? Yes. How about their families? Yes. They're not fighting so they can get a nice white picket fence and call it a day. They're fighting for that promise that God put in front of them, for all of this to be theirs. But they had to take it seriously. They had to commit to it. And they had to understand that just because they're done with their little battle doesn't mean their fight's over. For too many of us, the reality is we think the fight ends the day we say yes to Jesus. No, that's just when you enlist. Now the real fight starts. To where we become passionate about the unnamed masses in our lives that need rest, that need that promise of future reward, that need to hear the truth. That's what really happens. And in terms of how this goes with commitment, they say we will pray and support our leadership. That's what they say to Joshua. We're with you. We got it. We'll go fight. You do your job. Right? That's what they say. I didn't write that one in there. But that's what they say. They say we will not carry the weight alone. Whoever you look at in this room right now, if all your heads were to spin around and go crazy, everybody you'd see is a fellow soldier. My job is to get Eric to his rest. Because I don't get mine till he gets his. It's not an individual thing. I don't get to go, well, Eric, I'm exemplary. Follow me. No, I take his rest personally. Because it's linked. We're all linked. In the same cause, the same fight, the same desire, the same passion, we're all linked. Everybody in this room, you're linked. Whether you play bunco on a Friday night once in a while, or you have coffee with a friend, we're all linked. And every one of us should take the battle of every one of us personally. Because we all have a fight, and that is winning the hearts and minds of people. And getting out there and helping people come find their rest, helping people come into their rest. We should care about that. We should. We should all be passionate about that because it's linked. More people in heaven? Fantastic. It doesn't mean it's going to get crowded. You know what I'm saying? But that's how it feels sometimes. I feel like we're all just sort of hoping that nobody kind of pushes in on our sweet block we got lined out there. Well, you know, I bring in more of them. Reality is more apartments. I'm just not into having the apartment. I want a ranchette. Not too much where I'm working all the time, but enough that I can enjoy it. Right? And duck hunt off the back porch. Just be honest. The reality is that's not the case. The case is that God somehow, He'll find a way to expand heaven. I don't know how. He'll figure it out. He's good at it. Huh? Maybe. Yeah. Who knows? But the reality is, we don't carry the weight alone. And guess what? That means that you should be carrying the weight of other people. Because it's fun to read that when we go, oh, thank God, I just carry over. Here's some for you. Here's some for you. And we get to go, fantastic. No! That means you get to go, here's some for you. And they go, oh, here's some for you. Wait, what? I'm just as happy as I was yesterday. But that's the truth. And it's not just Christians, it's all of us, it's humanity. You're in this thing together, which means we know the way, the truth, and the life, right? So guess what? If we care about humanity, we should probably let them in on it. But that's the reality. We don't carry it alone, which means we also carry other people's. We give our lives in service to God and His desire to see all men saved. You know He desires that, right? And He works with us, right? So there's a link there. Not sure what. Somehow we're in this process with it. Right? We will fight for those to our right and our left, and those we do not yet know. How cool of a feeling do you think it was when those soldiers get to come back after a battle like that and go, get to come home and see people go, thank you for doing that for us. Because without that, we wouldn't have had this rest. You know, I think that's a pretty good feeling. I think it is. It's a pretty good feeling. It's a pretty good feeling. And though we may have days of rest, we will not live lives of inactivity, and we will actively pursue victory. In other words, you're all still in the fight. Everybody. Even if you're retired, Chris Byers, you are in the fight. Now you get your days of rest, one every week. One. But every other day, we are in this fight together. It doesn't mean we're just trying to survive and get through our day with Jesus, but we are staying on point, which is we are advancing the kingdom. You know what I'm saying? The only way to advance the kingdom is to advance the kingdom, which means make it bigger. Right? We don't get to advance the kingdom by making our piece of land look better. We advance the kingdom by growing the kingdom. And whatever it takes for us and those around us to inherit that which God has promised us, we will do. Which means that giving up your life can save hundreds of people, you do it. Right? Because they are your concern. And as much as your concerns are your concerns, their concerns are your concerns. Which, if it means that you sell out wholeheartedly, unabashedly for Jesus, and you become one of those crazy folk who's always talking about Jesus. Every time you sit down with a friend, I just love talking about Jesus. That means giving up your life. If you got other plans, do something else. And it means laying down your life for Jesus and becoming one of those. You do it. Because it's worth it. Because that's commitment. Right? That's commitment to the fight. That's commitment to the end. And I use this signing on the bottom line as an example. You know, you can walk through every house you want in your life with the idea of buying, but until you sign the paperwork, you didn't buy it. Right? But when you buy it, guess what comes with it? There'll be a little note that comes in the mail, where someone's going to start asking you for money. They're going to say, you owe us money, right? And as long as you're willing to pay the price, you get to keep the house, right? The minute you quit paying that price, the house goes away, right? It's commitment to the end of the fight that matters, not how hard you fight it for 6 months. It's commitment to the end of the fight is what we're called to do. We're not focused, we're called to focus on claimed ground. Patton said, I hate paying for the same real estate twice. He hated the idea of going backwards to go forwards. Hated it, right? Hated it. The reality is churches are really good at focusing on claiming ground, right? We're here to grow Christians. Let's claim ground. Well, it's important. The reality is, we advance it. Because that's what it takes to take the promised land, right? You don't get to go in 65 feet and go, we claim this land. You don't get to do that. You have to go in and take all of the unclaimed territory. You have to take it by storm, if necessary. With force, if necessary. With perseverance and resolve. With desire and passion and want. You have to want to win. When you're sharing your faith with people you know, when you're opening your life up to somebody, you have to want to do it. Right? You have to desire it. If you have someone in your life you know, beyond the shadow of doubt, God has called you to minister to that person, you have to want to do it. Because if you don't, you won't. You have to have unquestioned resolve and advance and desire to do it. We've been called to bring in the lost flock and make disciples. We got told to do that. As you say, Jesus, where you tell us to go, we will go. What you tell us to do, we will do. Anything you say to us, we will do. Because without that, we know that we forfeit our future. And we love you, and we desire, and we will stay firm and supportive of you. And Jesus said, okay, well, here's a list of things that are examples of what I tell you to do. And the reality is the kingdom of God is an advancing entity, not a retreating entity. It's not a private entity, it's not a hidden entity. It's an advancing army of people committed to the cause. And the mighty men are being summoned to the battle. The truth is, we are being asked to do it. Jesus himself painted a pretty bleak picture of what it's like to be a Christian follower, because it's a lot of work, and you got to sign the dotted line. Birds of the air have nests. Their food is provided. The Son of Man doesn't have any place to lay his head. It is not a call of simplicity and easiness. It's a call of difficulty. But we've all been called to answer it and to desire that advance. Because without it, there is no promised land. But we have to look at each other and say, I'm willing to fight for you. I'm willing to fight alongside of you to see this thing happen. It's not enough for one person to say, I'll give you my best. Everyone has to say, I'll give you my best. It's not enough. It's not enough. Until the 45, 50 of us that are in this room right now say, we will give it all we got. We cannot advance. And I'm just being honest. It is a fight together. It is something all of us signed up for. So few of us are doing it. few of us are doing it. So many of us are those fence people. They're kind of like, I'll advance when it's convenient. I'll retreat when it sounds good. It's not it. It's everything we've done. And say we will be victorious. We will make this thing happen. We will pick up our sword and we will go and we will fight. And fighting this spiritual battle is prayer, discipling, evangelism. It's the reality. There's no other way to define it. You know what I'm saying? And Joshua could tell them all the direction of the world. Go that way. But guess what? When someone raises a sword and starts to fight you, Joshua goes, swing left. Guard top. Swing down. Run him through. No. What do you do? Go that way. Right? He didn't stand behind everybody swinging a sword and tell them how to do it. Follow my lead. Right? Everyone's staring at Joshua when they're getting run through. Joshua, you're doing well. The reality is we all have a battle to fight. Some of us are going to do it kind of in a weird way where we feel a little bit alone. But the reality is we face our adversary, we do it as a team, and we do it together, and we win. We do it separately, we lose. We don't do it at all, and everybody loses. Because there are people whose salvation experience depends on you. And it's the truth. There are people in your life only you can reach. There are people in my life only I can reach. I have to take them seriously because their rest depends on my life. So, we're going to end service a little differently this morning. We're going to end service having you guys pray for each other. Because we're a team, right? Shouldn't be weird to huddle up. Right? Teams huddle. That's what we do. So you can huddle in your sections if you'd like. That's always fun. If you want to break up, huddle with somebody else, please do. All right? So spend a few moments praying for each other. Have the courage to stay in the fight. Everybody turn. Find somebody. Groups of 3, 4, 5, 6. Great. Groups of 1. Unacceptable. Groups of 2. Only for there. And don't be in a hurry. The challenge this morning is who are you reaching out to? And who are you going to reach? Who are you going to reach? Someone's depending on you. Someone's rest depends on you. Who is it? And go get it. All right, before you leave, I've had a number of people ask me why I wore red. And my wife thinks I look fantastic. No, it's actually the story of Garibaldi and the red shirts. It's a true thing, I didn't make it up. Anyway, it was a group of volunteers that united behind a cause that actually brought unity back to Italy. Everyone was serving for 2 Sicilies. And it was a group of volunteers. It wasn't a professional army. It was a group of volunteers that did so. And I was going to share a long part of the story, but yeah, a little too long. So the reality is that you can do a whole lot more than you think you can do if you feel the cause is important enough to act. And you can look me in the eye and tell me I'm shy. You can look me in the eye and tell me I don't have any friends, whatever. But the reality is, if you're united to the cause that is advancing the kingdom, if you feel that strong about it, you can do it. And that's what I'm asking you all to do. Is be united together, which means, guess what? On the battlefield, you're next to each other. You know what I'm saying? So making sure that you're supporting each other in that goal, which means, yeah, I called you to see how you were doing, things going well, fantastic. How's advancing the kingdom going? What? Friendship's over. But then, stop calling me. No. Yeah. But the reality is that should be something you're encouraging each other to do, right? I know that y'all talk a lot. Trust me, just Everybody here this week talked to at least one other person that attends this church? Yes. So you're all talking. So part of your conversation from now on should be, how is the battle going? Right?
Right.
That's the only way you're going to stay united behind the cause. The minute we quit talking about it, guess what? That might as well be over. Because we're losing. Everybody in this room, encourage each other. From now on, how's the fight going? How's the fight going? How's the fight going? The best, stories of heroism always come out of those things, right? Where you read these stories, that's amazing. Well, those stories serve to encourage other people, right? There's a reason it keeps going. And stories of heroism don't die or go away. They continue on for generations. Because it lifts the new generation up. So all of you can do that for each other. All right? You're dismissed. Take Rice Krispie Treats. If you drop them, pick it up.